Welcome everyone back to Spoiler Warning, featuring myself, Tom Colohue, where we, as always, are talking wrestling news. We are live both on YouTube and TikTok, so you can hopefully find plenty to enjoy of what we're doing here, and move slightly that way, because just so everyone's aware, unfortunately, we're a little bit hectic right now. There's a lot of work going on in the office, so I won't really get much movement for the sake of things like squats. Just so everyone's aware, I'm having to sort of box myself into a corner to be as visible as I need to be. So welcome, everyone. Plenty of chats, I know, incoming, plenty of questions, I know, incoming, and plenty of news as well that I would like to share. We will, of course, be starting by talking about CM Punk being unwanted in Saudi Arabia. We're going to talk a little bit about the technical issues that WWE have had, the debut of Hikuleo, Octagon Jr., Roxanne Perez. I'm going to read you a timeline of events as regards a recent arrest of a stalker of Liv Morgan. We're going to talk SummerSlam plans then for Jade Cargill and Cody Rhodes, how we got there, why we got there, and in fact, how we got there. So plenty to discuss. I will, as always, start with my top piece of news, and then we'll start answering questions from the chat. So be sure to get any questions in that you have. CM Punk. I've put as the title for the video unwanted in Saudi Arabia, but probably the best way to phrase it is unpopular in Saudi Arabia. His apology has not exactly fixed a lot of long-term issues. And in fact, there were plenty of people very high up in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabian government who were speaking to the WWE about ensuring that an apology would need to be forthcoming. The apology was very carefully scripted. The question was very carefully planted. And during his match in Saudi Arabia, John Cena was told, no, you need to work as a face because they hate this guy. So you might as well take advantage of it. You will know certain things that John Cena did, which are more in line with the old face character and not necessarily what he is typically doing now. But overall, this version of John Cena versus CM Punk played out very similarly to their match way back when at Tables, Ladders and Chairs. Oh my. So they worked on a lot of history, they worked on a lot of good old-fashioned fun, but CM Punk, very unpopular in Saudi Arabia, and WWE ultimately are just very happy to have got him in, got him involved, and got him out as quickly as they possibly could. Yes. Always fun. Wherever CM Punk is, there be drama. Ed, thank you very kindly for those gifts. A heart, an ice cream, 3 Thunder Hammers, and another ice cream cone. Thank you very kindly. Because I'm a bit hemmed in at the moment, I am somewhat limited as regards to squats, but I will get that one done for you as soon as I can. Got a hair in my mouth. Bob says WWE is hiring so many shapes. First Pentagon, now Octagon. Yes, and both of them are in fact junior, so they're small shapes. Hello Juan, hello Paul. Sid says, I agree with my friend. It said on Jade Cargill's LinkedIn professional wrestler. Why does it say that when she can't wrestle? Because she's actively wrestling and wrestles quite a lot. Hello Sledgehammer, howdy to you. Liam says, welcome mate. Per post wrestling, the Rock's team gave several notes and feedback on the episode he appears in for the WWE Unreal documentary, making sure his portrayal and probably the surrounding storylines. Yeah, they want to make sure The Rock is presented as positively as possible. The man is, after all, considering a presidential run, but he would be doing it from the side of the Republicans, so probably not going to be able to because the Trumps are going to be in that position for the next 20 years. Liam says, per Fightful, WWE Creative has had discussions about pitching a potential program involving Trish Stratus and Tiffany Stratton for the upcoming Evolution 2 PLE. That could be a lot of fun. I mean, it would mean Trish losing. Would be interesting. Sean says, hello Tom. Welcome Sean. Liam says, WWE just announced Roman Reigns is officially advertised for Survivor Series War Games in San Diego on November 29th. He'll be back long before that point. Liam says, per Corey Hayes, WWE Evolution 2 is set to feature a Battle Royal and the winner will earn a title opportunity at Clash in Paris. I will wait to see that announced. And Liam says, per Body Slam, there have been internal discussions within WWE's creative team about booking Rhea Ripley versus Io Sky Evolution 2 for the Women's World Championship. Brings all the news, he does. Brings all the news. Coming for my job. Eric says, any news on what the plans are for Asuka for SummerSlam? Not at this point in time. She's only just returned, so they are waiting to see what she's capable of at this point. Backward says, Solo Sikoa winning the US title was a genuine shock to me. Not to me. I was fairly confident Solo would be the next United States champion. I didn't expect it so soon, but I did expect it. Rickan says, update on Tama Tonga's return. Sooner rather than later, he is cleared. Hector says, afternoon Tom, this isn't really a direct wrestling question, but I'm considering using a... Nope. Won't read out the rest of that. All I will say is, my experience of Netflix has been very positive. Hey Calvin says, I kind of assumed that Karrion lost because of the fact that Sami is very popular in Saudi. Karrion lost because he was booked to lose because he's never been considered popular enough to give the win to. Don't know what else to tell you. Thank you, Ed, for another gift. They go popular. Always love it. Thank you. Backward says, I didn't watch Night of Champions or any shows in Saudi Arabia. I don't support them going there. I am in the exact same boat. Still haven't watched it. Pardon me. Still don't intend to. Michael says, don't wish the Trumps on us. Sadly, I can't work around that. They're wishing themselves on you, Nobel Peace Prize winners. Sid says, I had a rant about Jade Cargill winning King of the Ring. I feel sorry for Asuka losing to Jade Cargill. Why do you feel sorry for her? BM says, hi Tom, you good? Doing very well, thank you mate, good to see you. Drive-by says, hi Tom, did you see that WWE have released a Survivor Series War Games poster with Roman in the centre? Yeah, I mean, it's Roman, innit? He was always going to be there, he'll be back soon. BM says, disappointed Asuka didn't win, but I still think Asuka versus Io will happen soon enough. It will indeed. Calvin says, Jacob lost the US way too soon. BM says, just a reminder to everyone, Raw is on at 11 PM UK time. Wow, that is a big change. Sean says, Night of Champions and only 2 championship matches. Yeah, it didn't quite go with what they were going for. They were trying to get Dominic on, but it did not work out. Rickan says, with Tama Tonga joining Solo when he comes back, do you think Lance Anoa'i debuts sooner rather than later and joins Jacob? I think we're going to be double bloodlining in no time. In no time at all. BM says they're doing a SmackDown taping straight after, due to Friday being 4th of July and a public holiday. Hope you're not roasting too much up north. It was 33 degrees here, 20 degrees here. Perfectly manageable. Which in Fahrenheit, for those of you there, is 70. Whereas the 33 is roughly 93. Eric says, who do you see being on Jacob's side? I think the Usos or Jimmy and Tama Tonga. I've got my eye on Jimmy, I'll say that. And Drive-By says, glad the Saudi show is over. Shame the Royal Rumble will be there. Indeed, it means I literally can't watch the best show that WWE put on each year, and that's disappointing. But also disappointing is the whole deal and arrangement with Saudi Arabia. Bailey says, how many countries other than the US use Fahrenheit? I don't believe any countries beyond the US use Fahrenheit. They get to use a totally random one. I've seen the SNL skit. Very, very true. You asked about weights and measures. I did not. Liam says, advertised for WWE Raw tonight. Rhea Ripley kicks off. New Day versus Balor and JD for the tag titles. Sheamus versus Rusev. World Champ Gunter sends a message to Goldberg. Zayn and Penta versus Seth's crew. Eric says, any news on Don Wadlin's Survivor Series with him being champ and is from San Diego? Survivor Series is in 5 months, mate. You've got time. BM says, I anticipated that the Saudi deal would end eventually, but TKO have other ideas. Yeah, they like the money. Welcome, Ethan. Thank you kindly for sending a heart. Always appreciate you for that. Welcome to the show. Hector says, with Solo having Jeff Cobb, Tama Tonga, Tongaloa, and now Hikuleo, I could see this being the War Games match versus Jacob and whoever backs him up, with Jacob going over because he's so over. Jey Uso, Jimmy Uso, Roman Reigns. Just throwing those names out there. Aaron says, why has New Day's run been so bland? Because it's New Day, and ultimately there are times when they do great and there are times when, unfortunately, they're just not that exciting anymore. They need a bit of a refresh, and the heel turn was supposed to do that, but they don't have the right opponents for it. They need the right opponents for it. Ethan says, when does Roman return if he's meant to be a part of SummerSlam? Before SummerSlam. We've still got time, guys. We've still got time. Don't you worry. I mean, we've still got a Saturday night main event and an Evolution beforehand, do we not? Yes, Liam, it is taller Tonga, but he is the tallest one, so it does make sense. What a horrible name. You like a Tonga, but like taller? Taller Tonga? No. BM says, really happy Julia won the US title. BM bored of the bloodline now. Sean says, do you think Jordan Grace wins the title at Evolution? Impossible to say. I thought she would have been the champion a long time ago. I'd give JC Jane a little longer, personally. Calvin says, prediction. New Day loses the titles after interference from the rest of Judgment Day. BM says, and Dwayne, when's he due back? He's not at this point in time. Rickan says, do you see Jimmy as Jacob's right-hand man? No. I don't see a new bloodline, even though Jacob is our third tribal chief. It won't be the same as the bloodline with one person clearly in charge of everyone else. Dad says, big up Tom, who's next for Jay? He's got some options. He'll definitely have a match at SummerSlam, and I'm interested to see how that plays out. Drive-by says, any word on if Roman could have a match at SummerSlam, and if so, who do you think? I think he will have a match at SummerSlam. I think he'll be involved with Seth's party. It could well be, for example, Roman and Sami versus someone like Seth and Bron Breakker, but I also think there's a large possibility that we get a direct Roman versus Bron Breakker match. Roy says, I hated interference in the John Cena versus CM Punk match and Jacob Fatu versus Solo Sikoa. Yeah, interference came back with a bang, didn't it? Chris says, the New Day's best opponents are on SmackDown, i.e. MCMG and Pretty Deadly. I agree. They were looking to move those teams in the draft. The draft was pushed back. Next piece of news is as regards some of the technical issues that the WWE experienced in Saudi Arabia. Now, the WWE, Netflix and USA Network are disappointed with the resulting technical issues that caused problems on SmackDown and ultimately harmed ratings. But the WWE was simply not willing to challenge support staff in Riyadh, which were the cause of the issues in question. They simply continued the show, continued to record what they could, while there were some serious power issues. The WWE is not at fault to my knowledge for this. The real concern is as regards the technical staff in Riyadh who was supposed to be supporting them and giving them what they needed. But as I say, when it comes to Saudi Arabia, everyone in WWE loses their spine. So nobody was asked about what had happened. Even the WWE at this point are not entirely sure. Liam is suggesting Seth, Logan, Cena, Braun and Bronson versus Roman, Punk, Cody, Randy and Sami. So no space there for Jacob Fatu. Hector says, I've never watched AAA, but do they only have PLEs or is there weekly programming? Because Alberto and Angel holding the tag titles, I'd love to see them only on AAA until they lose those titles. That doesn't really do anything for AAA. I'm actually not entirely sure. I'm not well versed in AAA. I do believe they have regular programming, but I don't believe it's weekly. Rakan says, feels like every main event now is like Bloodline rules with these interferences. Liam says, Saraya says she's had conversations with WWE about an Evolution return. And just to be clear, she's reached out to WWE and asked about an Evolution return. BM says, that was that weird bit where a fan called out Punk and Punk apologised to him into Saudi Arabia. Jump back to the beginning of the video for explanations on that one. Sean says, Charlotte was on Brie and Nikki's podcast. She talked about working with Alexa, that they came up at the same time, loves working with her, and they have chemistry. Yep, everything I've been saying and everything Charlotte's been saying for years. Welcome, Daz. Good to see you, mate. Thank you kindly for that. BM says, I always say I can't stand the Saudi regime. Anonymous says, how long is WWE's contract with Saudi? Technically, it expired last year. So there's a new one. There's a new one. Hikuleo, now known as Taller Tonga, of course, reportedly, has now debuted, and many within WWE are keeping a close eye on this one because confidence in him is not high. He was told and instructed that he was going to be working at least briefly in NXT, but part of the deal to sign him involved an immediate move to the main roster, so any time on NXT has not been televised. Bear with. However, he has been working and training in NXT, and the WWE believe, well, it's now or never, because in the time he's spending in the Performance Center, Shawn Michaels is not on record, but he doesn't love the guy. There's a couple of people who believe he might not be the safest, and also believe the same of Tonga Loa. So this new version of the Bloodline, particularly Solo Sikoa's family, will work heavily on the basis of Solo Sikoa and Jeff Cobb and Tama Tonga doing most of the actual work. Fun. Aaron says Ludwig oncoming feud with the Creeds. BM says as long as I keep having UFC out there. Paul says I think Sami Zayn will win the Rumble 2026 and finish his story winning the world title. There has been a promised world championship feud for Sami Zayn. That was part of the deal to sign his new deal. Anonymous says no updates on AJ Styles. No, it's gone real quiet there. Pardon me. It's gone real quiet. To my knowledge, his contract has expired. They're still actively negotiating, and he's working on a handshake deal. No, Aaron, he's very much not. Very much not. Hector says Triple H really loves his overbooking from Night of Champions to WrestleMania. He just throws the whole roster at some of these main events. He does. We're starting to see now that he's actually not that different from Vince McMahon. Creatively. Just to be clear. Creatively. Doing well, thank you, New. Welcome to the show. Eric says, sourced by PWInsider, Trish Stratus is set to return to kick off her Evolution feud. Liam says, who do you think will stay with Jacob if Tama Tonga joins Solo's team? Well, no one will stay. They'll be new. BM, there's no time frame yet for Liv's absence. Also says, is Rusev going to be given a title push or is he just a mid-card filler? He's been back a couple of weeks. Very early days. Next up. And this is going to be very similar to what happened previously. Aaron says, no plans for Nikki anymore. Still considering a few options. So, a couple of things. Very similar to the show on Friday, there's a couple of reports that have just confirmed what I've already been reporting. So, firstly, for example, seeing Hikuleo, I know he wasn't really reported to be interfering in the match, but I did mention he was fit, he was firing, there were some concerns, but he was going to be coming soon. Body Slam are reporting that AAA star Octagon Jr. has now signed with the WWE. This news was first reported on Spoiler Warning. Body Slam has also reported that Roxanne Perez is expected to become Women's Tag Team Champion alongside Raquel Rodriguez. This news was also first reported on Spoiler Warning. So, a little bit of further confirmation for that. Anonymous says, do you think Zilla shows up and joins Jacob? Depends if there's a deal in place. Declan says, hi Tom. Welcome, Declan. And Sean says, I understand why everyone wants Asuka vs. Io at SummerSlam, but would it work since both are faces? Asuka isn't defined yet. Bailey says, does the preponderance of older talents at the top of the card limit the main roster growth of former NXT champions like Carmelo Hayes and Bron Breakker? Yes. Yeah. John Cena coming back did not do people favours lower down the card. CM Punk coming back did not do people favours lower down the card. That's the reality of the situation here. But there's also people who are forced through, like Jacob Fatu, which WWE really do believe in. Also, great use of preponderance. Hello, Ken. Good to see you, mate. Ray says, I'd like to see AJ Styles returning to TNA Slammiversary in July. He'll get a big pop. And Michael says, is there perhaps a hexagon that WWE can sign? Personally, I'm just excited for the day they finally recognise the talent of Dodecahedron Jr. I'm glad I got a joke in because it's about to get a little bit dark, guys. I want to share with all of you, and essentially I'll be reading a report from The Independent, who've done great work here, a timeline of events from a stalker that went to the home of Liv Morgan and was seen with a weapon. So, I'm going to read this out, and it's work that was done by independent.com, Justin Roilich. I want to make sure Justin gets credit for this because these are exclusive details and contacts that were made. This is great journalism. Wrestling journalism cannot compete with this. A Canadian pro wrestling fan, not a fan, is facing federal stalking charges after showing up at a WWE superstar's Florida home and attempting to break in before leaving a handwritten note on the front porch explaining his friendly visit, according to an FBI probable cause affidavit reviewed by The Independent. The documents say 41-year-old Scarborough, Ontario resident Sean Chan obtained a passport last month and flew that same day to Orlando, where women's tag team champion Liv Morgan lives and trains. As is customary in federal court filings, the affidavit, which was unsealed on Friday, does not identify the victim by name. However, it includes dates and details that match contemporaneous reporting regarding Chan's June 3rd arrest in Orange County on state charges related to Morgan. In parentheses, there was some initial confusion about the reasons for Chan's arrests, with some outlets conflating him with a second arrestee at the same location on apparently unrelated charges. end parentheses. The newly unsealed affidavit, which has not been previously reported, provides fresh details about Chan and his alleged stalking activities. Chan does not yet have an attorney listed in court filings and was unable to be reached for comment. Quality journalists will always reach out and try to contact all parties involved. On May 26, so just over a month ago, Chan boarded an Air Canada flight to Orlando, telling customs officials upon arrival that he would be staying at the WWE Performance Center during his stay, according to the affidavit. The center is a state-of-the-art training facility designed to develop well-rounded athletes of aspirations of joining the WWE, the affidavit explains. It does not, however, have any hotel rooms, dorm rooms, or other lodging. Now, there is WWE lodging for the Performance Center, but it is not on site. It is off-site, as I've mentioned before, as regards to Mandy Rose's situation. 4 days after he got to Orlando, the affidavit says Chan travelled about 2 hours west of the city to a house that appears to describe Morgan's, the affidavit states. Surveillance footage captured Chan arriving at roughly 5:20 p.m. on May 31st, wearing a black shirt, tan shorts, a black baseball hat, and carrying a large black backpack. If you are sensitive to potential gun violence, now's the time to mute me. I'll give you a wave when you can come back. He approached the home through the yard instead of walking up the driveway and circled the property twice, the affidavit goes on. He then entered the front porch and reached down around the doormat, presumably looking for a spare key, the affidavit continues. Chan, it says, then touched around the bottom of the front door, swiped the locking mechanism on the door several times with his hand, grabbed the front door handle and leaned into the door, attempting to open it. After failing to get inside, Chan then retrieved a long air rifle pellet gun from the front porch wall, which had been left outside of the residence, the affidavit states. The air rifle is a Sig Sauer MCX.177 air rifle capable of firing metal pellets at 600 feet per second. Chan can be seen sitting on the front porch with a pellet gun before standing and walking to the front door. I understand you may find it misleading that I've said potential gun violence, but I recognise it's not actually an assault weapon, but I do want to be clear and make everyone aware of potential risks so that they don't get triggered by certain things. After loitering for more than 2 hours, seemingly waiting for Morgan to return, Chan left a note near some packages that had been delivered, according to the affidavit. Among other things, the note mentioned having been wronged by members of an online gaming community and said, "I came here to pay just a friendly visit, nothing more. Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that I was here." The note included Chan's home address and phone number, the affidavit says. On June 3rd, Chan appeared at the WWE Performance Center, where, the affidavit says, Morgan makes appearances. However, security personnel recognized Chan from the surveillance video and notified deputies who took him into custody. In parentheses, it is unclear if Morgan was on the premises that night. I can confirm that she was. During a search of Chan's belongings, officers found 2 bottles of liquid with Chinese writing on them, the affidavit states. When asked what the liquids were, Chan stated they were medicines, one of which was to treat injuries such as bleeding, it says. Chan was also in possession of a Canadian passport in his name, which was issued May 26, 2025, the same day he travelled to Orlando. Morgan later told cops that she had been out of town when Chan was at her home and that she did not know him, according to the affidavit. She expressed concern that her home address was known to the public and that 2 other individuals had shown up to her residence without invitation or notice, the affidavit states. The victim explained she does not bring fan mail into the house because of the number of concerning messages she receives. Chan, who is indicted on Wednesday, is presently detained in the Pasco County Detention Center and is set to appear in Orlando Federal Court on July 18th for arraignment on 1 count of interstate domestic violence. If convicted, Chan faces up to 5 years in prison. I know it is not often that I go into that much detail, or I read things out in that much detail. But I felt this was definitely a situation where I just wanted to be very clear about the exact nature of everything that happened. We saw a breaking and entering and a possible hostage scenario with Sonya Deville. We're getting people stalking Liv Morgan coming to her home. Multiple people coming to her home. This is not okay. Aaron says, do you feel there's too much talent getting involved in Seth's faction? No, I really don't. Leroy says, are we looking at another Bloodline War Games solo team versus Jacob Fatu's team? I think so, though Roman is definitely going to be involved. Declan says, who do you see Becky's opponent being at SummerSlam? I think we'll see a triple threat between Becky, Bayley and Lyra. Liam says, fun fact, Undertaker's entrance at WrestleMania 34 was twice as long as his actual match with John Cena. BM says, I think Asuka might be the heel in the feud of EO, as EO seemed pleased to see her and positive, whilst Asuka was passive-aggressive. That's my analysis. Anonymous says, is it possible AJ Styles signed a new deal and it just hasn't been announced? Yes. Yep. BM, you're in the wrong there, mate. Chat rate is positive spam. Okay? I've asked for it. Okay, check in before you start policing. Sean says, Rhea said on Insight she had a stalker knocking on the house and she wasn't home. Thank fuck for that. Guys, we don't have a troll. BM misunderstood the situation. But I appreciate that you guys are all over it. Hector says, I know you don't watch the Saudi shows, but did you see that amazing ring gear for Jada for having a Storm-like outfit? It was some of the best ring gear I've seen in a while. I did not. KJ says, Pelican, it was his or it was already there? It was already there. In fact, it was outside of Liv Morgan's home. BM says, Peliguns can still cause serious damage, so it's good you gave the disclaimer. Yeah, I wanted to be as delicate as I could. Eric says, any news on the Roxanne stalker? Nothing, to my knowledge, has been released as of yet. Aaron says, any possibility Julia works with Rhea as a tag team? I'm pretty sure they're on different brands, aren't they? True, it's McCade. You're absolutely right. Yes, I was supposed to give you all a wave. It's McCade all over it. Thank you kindly. Oh, wow. I do forget things. Ray says, do you think Chris Jericho will return to WWE or stay with AEW? Yes, both, neither. BM says it's becoming a real serious issue of female athletes being stalked. Another tennis player, Emma Raducanu, had some trouble recently. Her stalker tried to buy Wimbledon tickets but were blocked. BM also points out the fan that forcefully kissed Saraya. Anonymous says, with Roman getting involved, he'll be Team Jacob for War Games for sure. I'm not going to say for sure. I'm not. Chat rate's gone to 25, guys. We are exploding. People are finding us. And this BM is why we do this. Okay? This is why we do this. Just to explain, because you probably weren't here when we first explained this. Chat rate is something that we can actively boost on YouTube. And the higher the chat rate, the more YouTube believes that the show is being engaged with, the more it advertises the stream to people. Chat rate is now 25 because of the people in the chat right now bombarding with chat rate, and that will mean more people join. I can literally see the spike in viewership as we speak. So thank you everyone for joining in. And yeah, BM, I'm not blaming you, mate. I'm not blaming you. It's just a misunderstanding. No Cherry Coke, Declan. Not today. I'm on Red Fanta. Calvin says, I've always loved how female superstars get very creative with their gear in Saudi. It's made for them, unfortunately. Martin says, good evening, Tom. I hope all's good. Just getting ready for my live 1:30 a.m. show till 6 a.m. Why would you... Oh, Storm. Yeah. Yeah. Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. Oh, I did not know that, Liam. That is a fun fact. Aaron says, Carmelo seems to be a jobber. So sad to see. He's not a jobber. He's just not getting a serious push. He's in the background. It is a fact that Triple H brings people in lower down the card than Vince McMahon did. And I'm okay with it. Pay your dues and all that jazz, you know? Pay your dues. Ray, I like Judas. That's all I've really heard. I'm not really a Jericho guy. Pardon me. Ken says, I usually watch on YouTube. This is my first time watching on TikTok. Welcome. I appreciate you dropping in. Like, the ideal situation is that we have people watching both, because having like 86 people watching on YouTube right now, if I had that on TikTok, I'd be exploding. But also at the same time, I ain't gonna chase anyone for that. You know, you do what you're comfortable with. and you enjoy whatever format you're comfortable with. That's all I really care about. Are you happy? If yes, continue doing so. Sean, I don't believe he said that. Liam says AJ Styles was the first person to compete at New Japan's Wrestle Kingdom and at WrestleMania in the same year. Declan says, who could you see join Becky's team at War Games this year? I don't see Becky competing at War Games this year. Or in War Games, I should say. It says Tom Tuckers. I like that. Aaron says, do you think they should have 2 women's world titles? Yeah. I don't think they should have mid-card titles. That's not working out for them. Calvin says, I'd love to see WWE do a special all-star kickoff of all 3 brands like they did back in 2008. A little bit then as regards SummerSlam. Firstly, we now have our king and queen of the ring. It is Jade Cargill and Cody Rhodes, surprising absolutely no one. As I reported several months ago, we're heading into Cody Rhodes versus John Cena 2 at SummerSlam. But first we have a Jade Cargill versus Tiffany Stratton set to proceed, if in fact Tiffany Stratton is still the champion come SummerSlam. As I've mentioned previously, Jade Cargill versus Tiffany Stratton opens a door for a Naomi cash-in, particularly a potential Naomi cash-in on a successful Jade Cargill, allowing Cargill to beat Tiffany Stratton and be so drained from the doing so that Naomi can cash in, take it away from her, and we head towards WrestleMania where we have another Jade Cargill-Naomi match. It allows them to transition the championship into their already made feud, and it gets Naomi closer than she's been to a championship for a long time. Personally, while I'm not super stoked for another Jade Cargill-Naomi match, I am a fan of Naomi, and I do think this is the only way she's going to get close to a sniff of gold in the future. As regards the other match that came out of the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments, Cody Rhodes versus John Cena 2 should be their final feud, but Triple H is still considering another match at WrestleMania if Cena goes for it. At the moment, this seems unlikely and actually gets less likely by the day, leaving room, in my eyes, for a challenger such as Jey Uso to challenge John Cena a little later in the year. They do, BM. They do. Eric says, the WWE planning to make Alexa and Charlotte an actual team? If so, do you think they'd give them the tag titles? Way ahead of that actually happening. Marcel says the WWE should give the women's wrestlers armed bodyguards. I don't think that would actually make many of the women feel safe. Noob says, what are your thoughts on the botched finish between Asuka and Jade Cargill? Didn't even know there was one, if I'm honest with you. Anonymous says, do you see Cody taking the title off Cena at SummerSlam? No. BM says, I disagree. I think Jade will win and defeat Naomi to ruin her cash-in. Hector says, I'm honestly shocked there isn't a WWE PLE in the UK or England this year. I guess PLEs will really go to the highest bidder going forwards. Looks like Sadiq Khan might need to take a loan out. Quite possibly, the UK government is simply not willing to finance an event such as a WWE PLE at the moment, it seems. Ray, I was aware of that, yes. I was aware of that. BM says, I also think Naomi might cash in on Tiffy before SummerSlam, setting up Jade versus Naomi at SummerSlam. So you have 2 completely disagreeing opinions. Michael says they should find something better to do with the briefcase. The whole thing of the person trying to cash in the ref looking clueless is old. Declan says, I think the WWE are rushing the Becky versus Lyra versus Bayley at Evolution. Certainly could be happening, but I do think there's plenty of opportunities available for them before we do get to Becky versus Stephanie Vaquer. BM says, to be fair, we did get a few UK live TV shows, so we haven't had a bad deal. We really haven't. That's our show today, guys. 35 minutes in. We've covered all of the news that we have. Attendances are a little different since I had a quick break, but I'm still enjoying presenting these shows and very happy with all of you for attending. Thank you very kindly for your continued faith, your continued company, and I'll be seeing all of you very soon. Until then, I've been Tom Colohue, you've been fantastic, and I'll see you soon.